All right, well, welcome back from lunch, everyone. It's great to see everyone back here. I'd love to go ahead and introduce Trevor Maxwell from Man Up to Cancer. So Trevor is a grateful husband and father of 2 daughters. He founded Man Up to Cancer, a community built to inspire men and the people who love them to connect and avoid isolation throughout their cancer journeys. Trevor has 20 plus years of experience as a journalist, PR, and communications consultant. He writes and speaks about his experience as a stage 4 cancer patient and survivor. And Trevor, the stage is yours. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. It's just an honor and a pleasure to be here with you today. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you.
No problem. The floor is yours.
All right, like Doug said, I'm Trevor. I live in Maine here with my wife Sarah and our 2 daughters. They are 15 and 13. So that's always entertaining. So I am 43, and I've been living with stage 4 metastatic colon cancer since March of 2018. So it's been about 2.5 years that my life changed, and that journey began for me. So earlier this year, I founded Man Up to Cancer, which is a digital content company and online community, basically built for men, inspire men to reach out, connect, and avoid isolation during our cancer journeys. And I'll tell you a little bit about, I'm going to speak briefly today about some of the barriers that prevent male cancer patients from learning about clinical research, from participating in clinical trials, and hopefully some of the ways that all of us and all of you who are here today can work on that problem together. But first I want to tell you a little bit about my journey, my personal experience as a patient. Whew, gotta take a breath before that. Honestly, I shouldn't be here today. I really shouldn't be talking to you because I shouldn't be alive. For a year and a half, from March 2018, for another year and a half, I faced disease progression. I had colon surgery, then chemotherapy, and then after chemo, I had 2 liver surgeries. So basically, my disease started in my colon, progressed to my liver. I had a low disease burden, so I had 2 shots at getting what we hoped was going to be curative liver resection. But unfortunately, I recurred after both of those. And then the disease spread into my abdomen and my peritoneum. And so when my disease continued to spread, that's when I started really learning about and talking about immunotherapy. Because I have Lynch syndrome, which is not common with colorectal cancer, basically I have that lucky biology that means that my cancer is highly mutated. So basically my immune system is trying to fight my cancer already. And the idea is with my biology that the immunotherapy comes in and can help my immune system keep the cancer at bay, if not give it that knockout punch that all of us patients are looking for. So about a year ago, I started on immunotherapy. It was September 1st, 2019. And I started on a combination of Opdivo and Yervoy from BMS. And I had known about this combination for a while because it was approved. That combination was approved for metastatic MSI-high colorectal cancer in, I believe it was the summer, by the FDA in the summer of 2018, right when I was going through my chemotherapy, like early on in my journey. And so by the time all my doctors agreed that this combo was going to give me the best chance at extending my life and possibly even get years of remission. And so by the time I started it in September 2019, it was approved. My insurance covered it. All I had to do was go 15 minutes away from my house. I had to just drive over to Scarborough, go to my local cancer center and get my infusion. So super lucky, again, like just very, very lucky to be able to do that and have it covered and have it be FDA approved. So I have not myself been on a clinical trial, but I've learned quite a lot about them And honestly, and it might be in my future, but honestly, the reason that I'm here today, the reason that I'm still living, still fighting, still hoping to extend my time with my family and loved ones is thanks to clinical research and those pioneers, all the doctors, all the medical professionals, all the patients, everyone in that ecosystem of clinical trial world that made it possible for me to have this hope in my life. It's amazing. It's amazing to live at this time and to have this opportunity to do that. So my disease has been stable for more than 6 months. I'm stable right now. There was one metastasis in my abdomen that maybe has grown a little bit, but everything else is stable. So I'm just very lucky because that has given me time with my family and friends. So I want to share just a couple stories about, about being that patient on immunotherapy, and that gratitude. My 15-year-old Sage just completed driver's ed a couple weeks ago, and I was able to, start her out before driver's ed, take her driving in the local parking lots and get her out for that. And then she got her permit. And so the other day I'm driving around with my 15-year-old daughter, which was, as I'm sure that's an experience that many of you in the audience have, that is a mixture of terror and pride, because terrifying, because I'm not sure at any moment, like I was thinking I was probably going to die of cancer and out of a car crash, really dark humor. And then pride of just being there. It's like, it's one of those milestones as a parent that you're just thankful to have. And I'm glad to be there with her and to do all this. And it makes me feel really grateful. And then just this morning with my 13-year-old Elsie, I was able to take her to get her braces on. Small things that a lot of people take for granted. I certainly did before I had cancer. But this is these are the moments, these are those milestones, these are those just and daily living, like being able to just watch a show at night and hang out with my family. Like, it's really special, and I wouldn't be doing it. I wouldn't have this opportunity to do it without the clinical trial trailblazers. So I just want to say thank you for that. What do you say to people who give you more time? When you're a metastatic cancer patient, time is the greatest thing that anyone can give you. So I appreciate that. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about there's this problem of men and cancer and isolation. And the whole Man Up to Cancer concept of inspiring men to not isolate comes out of my own mental health struggle. I would say so I didn't really have symptoms. I was fatigued for a while before my diagnosis, but I didn't have any other symptoms that would indicate that I was going to have a cancer develop. So by the time of my diagnosis, it was just a complete shock. I call it a life asteroid, basically hit our family. And I went through a very dark time with depression and anxiety and real struggle with mental health. Going through the surgeries, going through the chemo, going through all that stuff, the physical stuff was difficult, but it was really nothing compared to the mental health aspect. Like the depression and the anxiety that I faced really was clinical in those first 6 months, especially. And so the biggest thing that I did to climb out of that mental health hole was to basically say, I can't do this by myself. I had to reach out for help. I had to say, I can't do this by myself. So I reached out. I started doing counseling. There's a great place here in Maine called the Dempsey Center. Probably some of you are familiar with that, founded by the actor Patrick Dempsey, whose mother passed away from ovarian cancer. And I started going to individual counseling there, group counseling, started reaching out to groups online, and just looking for connections and to get some help through my mental health stuff. And as I did that, I started to ask a question like, where are all the guys at? Because I would see very few men at the Dempsey Center. I would see very few men in the online groups who were out there seeking connections and making patient-to-patient connections. And so one of my big questions was, where are all the men? Is it possible that I'm like the only man struggling with the mental health piece of cancer? Certainly that wasn't the case. Like, I knew better, and I knew in my heart that there were other men out there like me facing a cancer diagnosis, facing that shock and going through those dark times. And it just dawned on me, like, if they're not out there seeking help, and if they're not out there connecting in these spaces where you get help, there's a lot of problems that come with that. So I basically just started learning from my own experience, meeting hundreds of other cancer patients, and I started reading some of the science around men and life-threatening illness and how we respond in general. I always put an asterisk on all my content. It's like, these are generalities. But in general, men are conditioned in our culture to not accept help, to what we would say in the old days, to man up, to just go through it, to not burden others, just to be tougher. And that old model, for some things in people's lives, I think there was good intent there, and I think that can work in some areas of your life. But for a life-threatening illness like cancer, isolation causes a lot of problems. It's not healthy. And I will say the three biggest problem areas for isolating when we're talking about men going through cancer are, number one, mental health. You're going to have worse mental health if you're in isolation as opposed to not being in isolation. Number two is relationships. Your relationships with your spouses, your partners, your children, your family, your friends. Those really get strained if you go into your man cave and you're not communicating, or you're not taking on your disease, if you're just basically shutting down. And then the third piece is, and importantly for my discussion with you today, one of the other major problems with isolating going through cancer is that it can lead to poor medical outcomes. Men are less likely to seek second opinions and third opinions, and they're less likely to engage in patient-to-patient groups and with advocacy organizations. We see this a lot across the board. Like, in many of the colorectal advocacy organizations that I have engaged with, you often see the majority women, so women patients, women caregivers who are looking for support for their male loved ones who are facing cancer. So really that was the basis of Man Up to Cancer. And I'll just tell you briefly what Man Up to Cancer is. Essentially, it's my call to action. It's a podcast, a website, and so the podcast and the website are for men facing cancer and the people who love us. So I think there's a lot of content there for the women in our lives, anyone in our lives who cares about a man going through cancer. This is going to be helpful. And then secondly, we have a private, for men specifically, who are looking for support, whether you're a man patient, caregiver, a long-term survivor. We have a private Facebook community called The Howling Place, where men can go, and it's really like the old guys' lodge or social club for men impacted by cancer. And I started it on January 1st. I have a great friend, Joe Bullock, another cancer patient from North Carolina, who's helped me admin the group. And we now have more than 700 men from all around the country, and I think like 6 other countries in there as well. And we're getting, the vibe in there is just one of general support and camaraderie. We talk about our cancer, but more often than that, we talk about our lives, our hobbies, our passions, living with cancer, right? So that's what it is. So getting to know the guys in the group has really crystallized my opinions around sort of men and encouraging men to not isolate. A lot of male patients that I have met don't understand the difference between a community oncologist and a team at a large academic cancer center. They think if they get one treatment plan locally, then that's the plan they're going to get anywhere else. And also when it comes to clinical trials, so I've learned through Colon Town, through Fight CRC, through the Colon Cancer Alliance, I've learned that clinical trials are not the Hail Mary. There's a really strong assumption among men that clinical trials are last gasp efforts when your health is failing and when nothing else is working, that you try that. And I've really been educated and learned that clinical trials are often your best chance at extending your life and possibly reaching no evidence of disease. And they are for people who are still relatively healthy, still have good health performance, and they often combine standard of care along with some novel agent. So the bottom line with men is that a lot of men don't understand that. They don't have that education. So how do we bridge that gap? How do we let men know about clinical research? How do we let them know what opportunities are available to them? How do we empower them to take charge of their own health? And so first of all, we need to do just that. We need to let men know it's okay to be proactive about your health, to get out there and get multiple opinions. And I think the best place to do this is through patient advocacy organizations where other patients are. So if men get comfortable with patient-to-patient communication, which is where a lot of the learning happens around treatment options and around all that stuff. There's so much learning happening in those patient-to-patient organizations that I think getting more men involved in them and normalizing that is a way to start, because that's where the trust is at. And then connecting with other patients and educators in those groups too. So more and more you're seeing professional educators and doctors and other healthcare professionals engage with those advocacy organizations and those patient-to-patient groups. And I think that is really where so much is happening with progress. So you take empowered patients and you connect them with medical professionals who understand the value of empowering patients, and you're going to get great things. So lastly, sort of what can stakeholders do? So I think stakeholders in the clinical research space can be allies in this education. So people in the pharmaceutical space have taken big strides to build authentic, real, and trusting relationships with patients and advocacy groups. I think we need to continue to do that. I think we need to emphasize that we're all in this together and we all have common goals. So to continue to work together and work with patient groups to build resources and tools that connect members with trial opportunities and keep breaking down barriers to those trial opportunities. So I feel like the patient advocacy space is open to that, but it does require trust and it does require work. So I'm hopeful around that. We have a couple minutes left in this block. That's pretty much what I wanted to say today. And just thank you again for inviting me to share the patient perspective and some thoughts on men and how there's a little bit of a difference in approaching them to getting them involved in education around clinical research.
For sure. Thank you so much, Trevor. I mean, it's such an amazing story, and the community that you're building, it's only going to grow from here, unfortunately, but fortunately. So I'm trying to imagine, what's some of like the interaction in the Facebook group like? That was some of the questions that people had.
Yeah, I think most of the interaction in our Facebook group is more like the hangout place. Like I say, our Facebook group isn't the place to go science your cancer and like find out treatment options and all that stuff, but we have connections to all those other groups. So our place is more like for men to come kick back, not focus on the problem or the treatment. Like, yes, we discuss those things and people get into like, we call it howling because we call ourselves the wolf pack. We say, come on in, howl about your cancer. But then we say, tell us, one or two great things about your day or something positive, So it's a mix of serious stuff and just general kind of inspiration, positivity. And for those who are looking for treatment options and advice on how to face their cancer, we connect them with other groups, like some of those groups I mentioned for colorectal cancer. And in our Facebook group, we have all types of cancer. So we're trying to build some of those resources as well, so that when someone comes in and they're looking for specific content for a specific disease, we can connect them with the experts out there on that.
Absolutely. So I've seen more than a couple, inquiries of people who are looking to learn more about your organization and how they can partner. So Someone had shared the URL, so if you want to afterwards, just in the general chat, paste an email address where people can reach out to you for inquiries. I know you're
Absolutely.
open to them, and we're all about growing
Yeah.
the group. So really appreciate it, Trevor.
Yep.
It was awesome to have you here. It's no small feat that you're here sharing it. So thank you so much. We're looking forward to hearing and following what you're doing as the years move forward, and seeing the pack grow.
Thank you so much. I'm really grateful. Thanks, Doug.
All right, Trevor. So next up, we are going to have the pharma perspective by Sumit Hirawat from BMS, the Chief Medical Officer at BMS. So stay tuned. Thank you once again, Trevor. If you have any questions for Trevor, he'll be in the chat the rest of the day, and we look forward to the next session.